sort of captured the numbers for the year mostly, right? So you're not going to get a significant upside in the remaining time. So people are just getting ready for the next year and sort of going back, looking at where they can trim exposures and where they can sort of book profits.
Yeah, well, a lot of other news out there today related to AI, Kunjan. Let's talk about this Oracle news delays to some data center projects for OpenAI to 2028, and we're seeing the market roll over on this. What can you kind of tell us about, the state of this industry? On the one hand, a lot of promise there in the data center space, but also seems like a lot of kind of volatile sentiment related to it as well.
That's not entirely sure. So I think what it is again, expanding the geographic scope of what needs to be protected, expanding how the United States would be protected and with what. All of that is going to make it really difficult because it requires developing new capabilities that haven't existed before and seeing if they actually work as designed. It requires taking existing systems, existing weapons, communication networks, and trying to map them together across a broader span of geography than they've been asked to do before. And even more so, on top of all of that, it is really just trying to expand things from where they have existed in the past. So all of that is just going to make it really difficult for everything to operate as envisioned and actually come to fruition.
Now, Becca, the reporting also shows that there's been about 1,000 companies that have been tapped to submit proposals for this project, right? And so do you think that this scale of industry involvement, is that something that could potentially accelerate innovation related specifically to this, but maybe other applications?
Certainly. I think, again, the emphasis on space is a great example where I think it's trying to imbue more potential funds and research and development in some of the future space-based capabilities that the United States might want to have in order to deter some of its most capable threats. Additionally, I think we're going to see, and we're already
Hey,
seeing
YouTube.
with the list of companies
I'm back
who
up.
are potentially under consideration. We're seeing this mix of old and new. Some of those companies that have produced weapons for years.
All right, I'm back up everywhere. All right, guys, where did we leave off? Sorry about that. I have no idea. My local, there's a lot of construction around here going on, upgrades and new neighborhoods. So every once in a while, the internet gets clotheslined.
Part of the more traditional approach where research and development is.
All right, so have we bottomed out yet? We hit 25,120.
Where some of these companies, particularly these privately held companies, are going to be willing to
Let's see.
put
We gotta.
forward their own funds for research and
I
development.
won't sell longs.
To develop some of these prototypes.
Yeah, I'm not looking to go long. I'm just looking for an opportunity to.
Is there any sense of timing of how
to get the EMAs close together so that, if we start going south again, I got a spot to get in at.
This is going to be a no kidding in existence system by the end of his term. So that gives us less than 4 years. The reality is there's no way that this could be built the way in which it is detailed in the executive order.
I agree.
Within 4 years. The clock has already wound down, if I'm being entirely honest.
Right.
So I think we do see a much larger cycle of development for some of these capabilities. There's even just really lengthy production cycles that are required to produce some of these capabilities at scale. Already you see in places like Europe and Ukraine where there are just not enough things like air defense interceptors, air and missile defense systems, counter drone systems, and all of those would also be required for Golden Dome. So the production timelines are quite lengthy, let alone some of those research and development timelines for those next generation capabilities.
All right, Becca, thanks so much for joining us. Fascinating story. Becca Wasser, defense lead for Bloomberg Economics. Folks, this is a big take story on the terminal. It's also a Bloomberg Business Week story. It is really.
If I caught bottom, I'm go. Yeah, you are. You are.
Lots of cool graphics, which helps me understand this story.
You are. You are. If you.
Yeah. Business Week.
I'm not sure it's over yet.
Fascinating. We appreciate getting a few times at Becca. Coming up in just a moment, David Sachs, White House AI czar and special advisor for AI and crypto. He's going to be speaking with B-Tech anchors Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde. So we'll dip into that and listen to that conversation when it starts in just moments. But that kind of goes to, all right, we're all talking about AI. What's the government's role, and what is the government thinking about the development and maybe the regulation of AI? So there's going to be a big angle there.
Yeah.
We'll get that.
Absolutely, Paul. I mean, yeah, because a lot of these projects that are being thrown around, right, especially when it comes to M&A and things like that, the government will play a big hand when it comes to enabling that or maybe discouraging it, depending on how big the potential mergers are, how big the potential partnerships are, and what
One more leg down.
Yep. All right. Right now, let's go over to David Sachs, White House AI czar, special advisor.
We haven't even
for
really
AI
challenged the
crypto.
20
Speaking with
EMA.
B-Tech anchors Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde. Let's go over that.
I agree.
Who have argued local rules could stifle innovation. We're joined by David Sachs, the White House AI and crypto
Zero
czar,
profits.
or senior advisor. David, I think it's a really good place to start. In your work with the president in consulting,
it crashed. Yeah, I'm back up over there if you want to head over there.
What was the problem?
My internet went down. I just got everything back up and running.
What
C12
is it that you said
for
to
Sugar
the
Rush.
president about why this EO was the right approach to focus on state-level laws?
Well, Ed, thanks for having me. The problem that we see is that you've got 1,000 different bills going through.
YouTube is back up for anyone who wants to watch on YouTube.
And over 100 measures have already passed. Some of these bills are contradictory, and you've got 50 different states running in 50 different directions. That type of compliance regime is going to be very hard for small companies and startups, especially innovators, to comply with. And so what we need is a single federal or national framework for AI regulation, and that's what the president has supported. And by the way, he supported this for a long time. If you go back to his July speech on AI, he called for a single national framework then. And what we've done with this EO now is to make clear that that is the administration's policy and to task members of the administration to work with Congress to try and enact that framework through legislation, because ultimately this needs to be a law. And in the meantime, create tools that the administration can use to push back on examples of the most onerous and excessive state regulations.
David, there is, of course, some pushback, on the executive order from the states themselves, from other Republicans. As you know, I studied the July speech and strategy closely. A big part of it, was infrastructure related and about deregulation. The concern about this latest executive order is that while it addresses your concerns about many different pieces of state regulation, it does not provide for a single federal framework.
Well, at the end of the day, that single federal framework has to be enacted through law, and we need Congress to do that. And so the president has asked Congress to do that, and he's tasked members of the administration to work with Congress to produce that framework. In the meantime, what we've done here is articulate a set of principles. We've said what values are important to us. We said that we want to protect child safety. That's important. We want to respect copyright. We want to preserve the ability of local communities to choose what infrastructure is in their communities. We're not seeking to preempt the states in any of those areas. So this is an important set of principles that we have put forth. And at the same time, the EO provides for a number of tools that can be used to push back on excessive state regulation. And just Ed, let me just illustrate why I think this is so necessary. Because what we're really talking about here is regulation of AI models and algorithms. Well, think about how an AI model is developed. You can have developers in one state or multiple states writing the code. It can then be trained in a data center in another state. You then can have inference happen in another state, and the entire service is provided over the internet using national telecommunications infrastructure. So you're dealing there with at least 4 different states, and all of them can lay claim to regulating those AI models. And those regulations can be in contradiction with each other. Even Democrat governors have admitted this is a problem. So just the other day, Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York, it basically said that she might prefer to enact California's SB 53, which is a regulation that they just passed in California, rather than the bill that her own assembly gave her, the RAISE Act. Because she sees that, wait, do we really want to create this patchwork of different regulations? So even Democrat governors are realizing this is a problem, and if they all run in different directions, then we're going to end up with a patchwork or a mishmash of regulations that are impossible for companies to comply with. What the president is calling for here is just common sense. We want to get to a single national framework of compliance as opposed to 50 states running in different directions.
Meanwhile, Kathy Hochul actually is getting a bit of criticism, perhaps, for narrowing and what some are saying is bowing down to business. David, I'm really interested in how you oppose that view, because there is anxiety in the population. AI versus jobs.
Okay,
AI versus
so
energy bills. How are you giving them the sense
we're
that
challenging.
we haven't
We're
seen federal
challenging
government
the
and indeed
red
now
dot
state
dash
governments
line
just
is
handing over
our
the reins
historic
to big tech
line of resistance and
billionaires?
support. We've got the same one on the
No, I
ES.
understand there's a lot of fear out
So
there
we're
about
working this
AI
zone.
and
So we're
job
gonna
loss
see.
specifically, and a lot of those fears have been.
We're going to see if we run sideways in the
Let me just
zone
say
and
on the job
consolidate
loss
and maybe
questions, I
make
think
a
this is
move
really
up
important.
before
The ALJ
another
released a
push
study,
down.
and it
That's
showed
kind of,
that
that's
in
kind of what we're
33
waiting
months
for
after the
here.
launch of ChatGPT, there was no discernible disruption to the U.S. job market. None. They said no discernible disruption. And in fact, if you look right now, more jobs are being created than being lost. So this whole idea of job loss is just isn't true. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal just last week talking about the construction boom that's happening, that's benefiting construction workers, like electricians, like plumbers, like workers who pour concrete or hang drywall. Their wages are up 30% because of this infrastructure boom that's happening right now. And there's actually a job shortage in many of those trades, meaning we need more workers going into those trades. So what we're seeing right now is an overall AI boom that's benefiting the economy.
Okay.
You know, the GDP growth rate was tracking at about 4%, and half of that, up to half of it's been attributed to AI. So I just think that this narrative about job loss has been blown out of proportion. Certainly there could be job displacement in the future, but we haven't seen any of that so far. It's been quite the opposite. It's been job gains.
David, final one on the EO, if I may. You know, what this EO allows for, is it the sort of hope that it will lead to the DOJ suing states like New York and California? And if that's the case, you know, the president and the administration's confidence that you'd win them?
Well, that is one of the tools that is in the EO, is that the DOJ has been tasked to form a litigation task force that would have the ability to push back on excessively burdensome state laws that may be unconstitutional, violate the First Amendment, things like that. By the way, the DOJ already had that power, so this is not a novel power. But what's being done here in this EO is we're marshaling all of the resources of the federal government behind the strategy of the president to create a national framework. Now, in terms of what laws we go after, that's a decision that has been made. We haven't decided whether California and New York should be targets in that way. The one that I think is probably the most excessive is this Colorado law that seeks to prohibit algorithmic discrimination.
Right.
What that basically says is that if an AI model has a disparate impact on a protected group, then that model is violating the law. Model developers, by the way, have no idea how to comply with this because they're not aware of all the downstream uses of their model. I mean, if a business decides to use an AI model in a hiring decision, for example,
right,
that business is already on the hook for discrimination. So how would the model developer know that it was being used in that way? But what Colorado is trying to do
I didn't take
there
the 20
is
EMA
get
short,
their ideology
but wanted to.
inserted into the model. That's very concerning to us. We think there's a First Amendment issue there.
Is
But look,
YouTube
we haven't
working
made any
now?
Decisions in terms of how that litigation task force
Should be
will be used.
working.
David, briefly, all of this is set in the context of US versus China and a deemed to run forward on AI development. Meanwhile, it's been a busy week, and H200s might indeed be able to get to China. How many do you think you'll do in volumes, and what do you think the appetite is of China to buy NVIDIA's more sophisticated chips?
Well, it's interesting. I just saw an article that said that China was rejecting the H200, so apparently they don't want them. And I think the reason for that is they want semiconductor independence. The same way that the United States wanted to be energy independent, they want to be semiconductor independent. So they're rejecting our chips, and that's part of the calculation that goes into the decision of what we authorize to be sold to China. The U.S. policy has always been that we don't allow the leading edge chips, and we're not. This H200 chip, it was state of the art a couple of years ago, but now it's been superseded by the newer Blackwell architecture and the Rubin architecture that's coming out next year. So this is now a lagging chip, not a leading chip. But what you see is China is not taking them because they want to prop up and subsidize Huawei. They want to create a national champion. And that was part of our calculation of selling not the best, but lagging chips to China, as you can take market share away from Huawei. But I think the Chinese government's figured that out, and that's why they're not allowing them.
David Sachs, we always wish we had more time. White House AI and crypto czar, we thank you for joining us today.
All right, that was tech anchors Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde speaking with David Sachs, White House AI and crypto czar there. Big story in the tech space today. Oracle with some news out there talking about maybe pushing back some of their rollout. It's been a little bit of a headwind for just the last several trading sessions for some of these AI names. Oracle stock off 5.8% today. Joining us is Anurag Rana, senior tech analyst for Bloomberg Intelligence. Anurag, what's the latest from our friends at Oracle?
Yeah, from what I just heard is that they are having some delay in getting the data centers online. And as we know, if the data centers don't come online, the servers are not lit up, you really cannot transform that big backlog into sales. And I think that has been a big concern for everybody. This just shows that it's not going to be a linear line to go from funding to get the data centers lined up and then recognition. So I think that's a hiccup for them. In our calculations, it does impact their FY28 sales, but not the ones that, in the next, let's say, 12 months.
Yeah.
Now, Anurag, Paul and I were noting earlier that the delay seems to be decided to labor and material
sellers.
shortages, right? And so
We're kind of pushing sideways here. I was kind of hoping to push sideways for a while and see if we can't get something going.
And why is it so subject
Looks like
to
almost everyone's back. Sorry about the crash, guys.
See, it's no different than building any manufacturing factory or anything else. I mean, you'd have labor. The biggest bottleneck right now for everybody is power. So let's assume that these big vendors have figured out, they've found like somewhere in Wisconsin or somewhere in Atlanta, they found a place where they have enough power. Then you got to go out and build a data center. Cooling equipment, labor.
Bottom for now. I want to sell my long so bad. Tell me, please. Just I trust you. I don't know, man. I can't catch the knife, man.
Is there backlog that they quote? Give us a sense. Is that a good number, do you think? Is that representative?
Oh, it is absolutely spectacular.
I can't say, man.
$500 billion.
I mean, the chart looks pretty decent here, but it can just, it could attack these zones down here. It could attack these fair value gaps any moment.
But what has happened
You know,
has this
there ain't a lot holding the bottom up right now.
Capacity so that they can do both inferencing for a lot of the workloads that are coming in, but more importantly, they can train their models so that their next generation models are better than, let's say, what Google has produced. So it's an important, you could say, strategy for them in order to get that data center up and running. And for now, they have been partnering more with Oracle.
Hey, there's 3 people on Rumble.
Anurag, thanks so much.
Rumblers.
Anurag Rana, senior technology analyst on the technology.
Can somebody write something in chat?
Oracle stock trading off a little bit today. Going to be some delays in some of the rollouts of their products here.
So I know chat works.
That's certainly a contributor to what we're seeing sell off in the marketplace here on this Friday morning. The S&P is off 89 points. It's 1.3%. That's pretty much at the low of the trading session. The Dow's off 300 points. The NASDAQ really taking it on the chin, off about 450 points. And that is also towards the low of the day. That's down 1.9%. So some big sell-offs in the market. The yields, 10-year Treasury yield, 4.18%.
Hey.
Off 3% here, sitting right at $90,000.
Hey, Fish Frying, how you doing? Oh no, I meant in Rumble chat.
Listen to us on satellite radio.
In Rumble. There's like 3 people watching in Rumble. Hey, Fairy King 007. Gotta head out. Have a nice weekend. See you guys. Take it easy. Take it easy, Fairy King. We'll be. Hey, I turned the stream back on 6 o'clock Sunday night. Let it, and it runs 24 hours during the trading week. And I'll be on the mic at 8 o'clock Monday morning if you want to come hang out. Have a good weekend, Fairy King.
You were done an hour ago.
This is CBS News on the Hour, sponsored by Steel.
I'm Steve Kathan. Opponents of President Trump's big White House ballroom project have gone.
I'm long, but I would like some more confirmation.
The first major lawsuit has been
Oh shit, well if you're long, you got that big Shrek candle starting to develop. Nephew's getting rich on paper.
The lawsuit argues the administration failed to undergo legally required reviews or receive congressional authorization for the project. The president had said the ballroom would be near but not touching the White House structure, then later demolished the entire East Wing.
Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released another batch of photos from the estate of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. CBS's Jake Rosen.
These photos show anyone from former President Bill Clinton, President Trump, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers, filmmaker Woody Allen, in addition to Bill Gates, Richard Branson, and Prince Andrew.
Republicans on the committee accuse Democrats of cherry-picking photos. CBS's Scott McFarland.
Democrats would argue it brings a lot of value. It underscores the importance of releasing the full Jeffrey Epstein case files because it shows that Jeffrey Epstein was operating in
12% up.
circles, and that maybe those case
Uppity
files
up.
show
All
something
right,
the
so we got a
public
green
needs to know
forecast
about
cloud, the first one
defining
we've
what
had
that
in a
something
while
is.
here.
A federal judge has blocked
So let's
ICE
see.
from
Let's see if we
re-detaining film
we can
artist
get the
Grego
control
Garcia,
EMAs
saying
to
she
come
feared
together,
they
and
might
if
take
it
him into
rolls over,
custody
I'll get in
again
on the
hours
short
after she
maybe.
ordered his
I don't think I'm
release.
going to be
Charlie
taking this
Sandoval
long.
Motionberg is his attorney.
He's heading back to Prince George's County to be with his family, with his child, with his wife, who are waiting there for him. Everyone is extremely happy about this. Obviously, everyone knows that it's not the end of the story.
Grego Garcia faces federal human smuggling charges. Days of torrential rain in Washington state has caused historic floods, stranding people on rooftops, washing over bridges. Forecaster Jessica Birch says there's no real let-up.
Monday afternoon, more showers expected to push not only from the Pacific Northwest, but this time it's making its way all the way down to the Bay Area as we head into Tuesday morning. So wet conditions from San Francisco all the way back up into Seattle. That's already seen so much so far. And then we're not out of the clear yet.
Earlier this week, Marie Steinberg got into her car to drive to work in Edenton, North Carolina. She spotted a man in the back seat.
He looked so cold and so scared, I thought, well, I'm not going to try and provoke him. I'm going to try and...
I don't know, man. I think I'd
pull the Mother Act on him.
The Mother Act seems to have worked. Turns out the man was an
probably
escaped
tighten up
inmate.
on it to the 20 EMA at
Custody
least.
Without incident. Checking Wall Street, right now the Dow is down 239 points. The S&P is down 77. NASDAQ down more than 400. This is CBS News.
Okay, we got a support demand getting stronger. All right, guys, I got a work call I got to make. I got to call this customer. I'll be right back.
Health officials are urging people not to forage for wild mushrooms after an outbreak of poisonings in the San Francisco Bay Area. They say one person died, another underwent a liver